Why don't birds keep getting bigger? Millions of years ago, birds bigger and heavier than modern SUVs roamed the Earth. Some stood over 12 feet tall and weighed more than 1,400 pounds. So what happened? Did evolution simply stop making giant birds? Not at all. Evolution doesn't necessarily have a finish line. It doesn't decide that a species has become big enough. The real story is much more interesting. Giant birds evolved over and over again throughout history. They just didn't survive to the present day. After the asteroid wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs 66 million years ago, the world was suddenly filled with empty ecological roles. Birds, the only dinosaurs that survived the extinction, rapidly diversified to fill them. Over millions of years, different groups of birds independently evolved into giants. Madagascar was home to elephant birds, some of the heaviest birds to have ever lived, weighing over 1,400 pounds. New Zealand was home to giant moas that could stand over 12 feet tall when their necks were stretched upright, while South America produced the terrifying terror birds, giant predators that became some of the continent's top hunters. Despite evolving in different parts of the world and from different ancestors, they all had one thing in common: they were all flightless. That wasn't a coincidence. Flying places an incredibly strict limit on how large a bird can get. As a bird gets bigger, its weight increases much faster than the size of its wings. Bigger birds need disproportionately larger flight muscles, burn far more energy just to stay airborne, and have a much harder time taking off and landing. At a certain point, flying simply becomes too expensive. That's why the heaviest birds capable of sustained flight today, like the Cory bustard and the great bustard, weigh only around 40 to 45 pounds. Even the wandering albatross, which has the largest wingspan of any living bird at nearly 12 feet, stays relatively light because it spends most of its life gliding effortlessly over the ocean. But once a bird no longer needs to fly, those limits disappear. Natural selection can begin favoring larger bodies, stronger legs, and more efficient ways of surviving on the ground. This happened again and again on isolated islands and continents like Madagascar, New Zealand, Australia, and South America. Islands are especially fascinating because they often have very few predators and much less competition. If nothing is chasing you, carrying around massive flight muscles and giant wings becomes a waste of energy. Over countless generations, birds gradually evolved smaller wings, weaker flight muscles, and larger, heavier bodies that were better suited for life on the ground.
The dodo is one of the clearest examples of this. Its ancestors were flying pigeons that reached the remote island of Mauritius millions of years ago. Since there were no natural predators waiting for them and food was plentiful on the forest floor, flying stopped being worth the effort. Generation after generation, natural selection favored birds that spent more time walking than flying. Their wings became smaller, their bodies became heavier, and eventually they lost the ability to fly altogether. The dodo never grew into a giant like the elephant birds or the moas, but it perfectly demonstrates how isolation can completely reshape the evolution of birds. So, could giant birds evolve again? In theory, absolutely. Evolution hasn't stopped making giant birds. If there were places with few predators, abundant food, and enough time, flightless birds could once again evolve into enormous forms. In fact, evolution has repeated this experiment many times throughout history. The problem isn't that nature stopped creating giant birds, it's that the modern world rarely gives them the chance to survive. So why don't birds keep getting bigger? They actually did, many times. Most of the giants simply went extinct. The birds that still fly remain constrained by the unforgiving physics of flight, while many of the largest flightless species disappeared after humans spread across the globe. In a way, giant birds never truly vanished. Every ostrich, emu, shoebill, and cassowary alive today is a living dinosaur, the descendant of the same lineage that survived the asteroid impact 66 million years ago. They are the last surviving echoes of a world where birds grew to astonishing sizes and walked the earth as giants. I'm gonna call it there, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this video, but most importantly, learned something new today. If you did, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.